Good evening and welcome to Tartan Tunes. As you've probably noticed, Peter's not with me tonight. He's not feeling that great, a bit under the weather, so he's away to bed already. So you're stuck with me for the next hour or so, but we are going to bring the guest on pretty early because I know that my patter is rubbish at the best of times. Tonight we've got the singer-songwriter Gary Anderson, not to be confused with the world champion darts player of the same name. Both Scottish, but Gary's a bit close to me. He's from Montrose. So let's keep it simple and bring on Gary. Hi, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, no bother. Thank you.
How's it going?
Hi, good.
So let's go. Let's just kick it off straight away and skip to January 1st, 2017.
January the 1st, 2017. So
the day your name got stolen.
Oh, right. Okay. I know where you are now. The day I made the national press.
Yes, exactly. So, obviously, Gary, you've been playing for many a year under your own name.
Yeah.
And then it all got a bit too much for the famous sports person, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it was actually Dougie McLean's wife had mentioned to me that it's quite difficult to find you on sort of YouTube and places like that, because as soon as you put Gary Anderson in, you get the darts player.
Yeah.
And even if you put in Gary Anderson music, you get the music that he walks on for a match. So it was so she suggested it might be worth considering playing under a different name. And so I thought, yeah, that does make a bit of sense, because I had noticed that myself, because I'm constantly wanting to see myself on YouTube and stuff. So
it's the phone calls saying,
searching myself.
It's the phone calls that you did get saying, do you fancy going to do a testimonial match against...
Well, that's it. Or getting heckled because I turned up to play a gig and they were expecting a darts demonstration.
We'll get back to all that. So you're from Montrose. You're from Montrose, kind of born and bred, aren't you?
Yeah, aye, yeah.
And this is the annoying thing about tonight, with obviously Peter not being here. Your background kind of goes back to Scottish dance bands.
Well, my dad played in Scottish dance bands sort of way back in the 50s. Mm-hmm. He actually played with Lindsay Ross.
Yep.
Back in the day, and he got the offer. He got the offer to sort of, do you want to do this as a sort of full-time job? And he decided at the time that I think I'll get a trade first.
Yeah.
But he sort of, he was a slater for years, and then he sold insurance for a lot of years after that, but sort of kept doing music right the way through as well.
Yeah.
And so there was always sort of music in the house that, you know, he played. It was mainly sort of wedding bands that he played in. Yeah. So it was, he was never here on a Saturday night. You know, he was always out gigging or playing weddings on a Saturday night. And so it was religiously. He had his tea, then he started getting ready, and Take the Floor was on the radio as he got ready. Yeah. So it was that kind of music's always been sort of in the background for me. It certainly wasn't what I started playing first of all, but
no, it does say that you did mention that. Also, your dad was a drummer, wasn't he?
Yeah, aye, yeah,
yeah, and that's where you started off originally.
Well, sort of. He was upgrading his drum kit, and I got to keep his old one, which I think him and my mum regretted immediately. Absolutely. Yeah. So I got it set up. My bedroom in the family home was upstairs in a sort of attic room, so everybody in the house would have bloody heard it. And I wasn't much of a drummer, and I'm still not much of a drummer.
Well, it's a good place to start. It gets you a bit of grounding and kind of playing along to records and things like that.
Yeah.
But so, how old were you then?
I think probably early secondary school.
Right. Yeah.
I think I was in a, and then maybe sort of tail end of second year, maybe third year secondary, I got a guitar.
A proper instrument.
Yeah, and then it wasn't allowed anyway.
So that you said that at age 13 you got your first guitar. Was that taught at school or was it taught privately?
It was actually private lessons that my mum got. I think it was because on the back of I've never been very sort of disciplined about practicing and stuff. But if I think the fact that I knew how much she was shelling out for these private lessons, it gave me the motivation. I do need to keep this going, sort of thing. So you then started in a band called Midnight Hour. Midnight Hour, yeah. It was just basically a couple of the guys were a year older than me at the school. One had already left the school. And it was just, it was a covers band, just doing sort of the usual sort of pub stuff at that time. The Eagles, Status Quo, just a bit of everything.
So by that point, you learnt 3 chords then?
Well, yeah. Aye. Still searching for the fabled 4th one. I still am.
Oh, dearie me. But it says, I'm referring to your bio that you sent us, and it says that your first gig was actually playing bass.
Yeah, I because the band already had two guitarists. I would dig it. I got the job because I could sing. That was that was how I got that gig. It wasn't my guitar playing or my bass playing that got me that gig. Not a chance. But yeah, I could sing. Which again is someone else I got from my dad. He always referred to himself as a singer that played drums, and I've kind of kept that going. You know, I'm a singer that plays a bit of guitar and a bit of mandolin. So
You do mention the mandolin, but we'll get back to later on. You said that you joined a band playing mandolin, but didn't own one.
Yeah, that was a wee bit. That was a guy called Colin Klein. He's actually originally from Stonehaven, and he'd been across in the States for a few years, and he'd come back, and he had an album to put out, and he wanted to put a band together just to promote it. And we'd been chatting on and off, just online, and I happened to mention that I could play a bit of mandolin, and he said, "Oh, well, that would work for some of the songs. Do you fancy giving it a go?" And I says, "Aye, no problem at all." He says, "You could do a bit of guitar, a bit of mandolin, and obviously backing vocals as well." And I says, "Oh, that's fine." And so I actually had to borrow a mandolin for the first couple of rehearsals because I didn't.
And then you thought, I'm actually not too bad at this. I might have to buy one.
Well, I thought, well, I'm going to hit a gear. I'm going to hit a gear the guy's mandolin back. So
it does get to that point, doesn't it?
Well,
you've been, as we mentioned the show last week, you recorded 5 videos last Sunday for us. You did a gig. Was it just yesterday? You did the Ukraine gig?
It was Friday night. Aye.
With a Friday night, yeah. Because remember, you're saying you're kind of practicing for that at the same time. We're going to have our first video from you.
Okay.
And this, from the notes I've been given, this is what can be referred to as your first kind of dip of the toe of songwriting. It's Another Scotland.
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I'd done a wee bit of songwriting back at, when I was sort of playing the Midnight Hour, actually. And then I didn't do any for sort of years and years. And I tried to get back in it. One of the things that my dad passed away in 1993, and I wanted to write a song for him. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and I couldn't. It just wouldn't come. And almost gave up on the eventually got it, but that's a different story. But my wife suggested maybe rather than sort of starting totally from scratch, why don't you look at some poems and try putting them to music, and then you're not having to think, about the lyrics of that, because they're kind of already there. So I'd come across a book of poems by Raymond Vitisi, who stays in Montrose, and he wrote all in Scots, and I thought, that's quite interesting. So I did. I think I ended up doing 3 of his, and Another Scotland was one of them.
Okay.
So it actually ended up getting also. It ended up on the Last Journey North album that I played on as well. So 2 totally different versions. This is a mere sort of, the one I've recorded for you is a bit more laid back and sort of singer-songwritery.
Perfect. Let's have a wee listen. Another Scotland.
I heard the folk o' the fisher tunes drift awa' while new owners land. Loud city voices declare to homes, the houses whitewashed, the gardens pruned. But what was here that roused and bar the rockle steer o' Another Scotland? we the boats, we the herald. I heard the speak o' all men on ilka tongue. The dear words were thee, ballad out and ballads on Saturday night. But the chills are long gone until the air, and the hill way o' deal gied we them. They ploughed we horses, they tractors. Wadna we seen with the children bees. What's to come I could tell, but you knew that I seems to money is far away. As both these in fear and age hand, and the words I love he is weal on far until the deck as the Scotland that was wells up and changes that which must be. Yon Wenham or the words that flee up in the air, heathen strange, heard nae mair by money see the likes of me. In the souk o' the one and the shade o' the house, and the doors trembling rusty creak. They soon for I'm as them, a ghost and a new sign o' west or east.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Gary.
Thank you.
Did you find it easier to sing in Scots, or do you prefer singing in what we refer to as English as such?
Probably easier in English. Although I try not to sort of affect the mid-Atlantic accent that's so prevalent. You know, I try to still sing in my own accent.
Yeah. But with kind of English words rather than singing in Scots. Yeah. So you played them in the hour, and then you went into the band Final Conflict.
Yeah.
But after that, you kind of changed genres, didn't you?
Yeah. I suppose again I followed in my dad's footsteps. I ended up in a wedding band throughout the 90s. So it was mainly playing sort of golf clubs, football clubs, that sort of thing, and obviously, you know, private functions, weddings, and we used to do the Forfar Athletic yearly sort of prize giving dance. We did that quite a few years, and things like that. It was good fun. It was good fun. It pushed me right to the front of a band for the first time. I was doing a lot more sort of lead guitar as well as sort of just sort of rhythm guitar. It's so yeah, it was again a good grounding.
But that was not to be kind of a long term thing, because if you did your last gig at the Millennium.
Yeah, Yeah, so and saying that, it was 10 years that we played together, which
Yeah.
for a lot of bands is doing no too bad. Yeah, it was just, again, I kind of, I found weddings really stressful,
Yeah.
because you've no idea what the crowd that you're going to get, and it's really up to you to make the night a success.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so much of that actually depends on the guests at the wedding, and if they're nae up for it, it reflects so badly on the band.
Yeah.
And
I sorry to digress, but I remember playing at a wedding at the Old Course, St Andrews,
uh-huh.
and they'd hired a Ceilidh band. Fine, no issue. It was a dry Muslim wedding,
Right.
and they had that's probably one of the hardest gigs to try to get folk up to dance, because you know
Aye.
yourself, a bit of lubrication and
Yeah.
kind
Aye.
of folk in the. It was a difficult gig. It was. They eventually got into it, but yeah, I know what you mean by that. Because, like you said, if it's not the right, if the crowd aren't in the right frame of mind, or if something's happened before you've got there, and it just kind of you're fighting a losing battle, really, aren't you?
Aye. Yeah. But it again, it reflects so badly on the band.
Yeah.
It's if nobody's dancing, it's never
the
their
band's
fault.
fault.
It's the band's fault.
Yeah. Is there any kind of gigs that you've thought that was a brilliant gig, and you came off kind of buzzing, but then realised that it wasn't the gig that it could have been?
That's an interesting one.
I do try.
I wish you'd fed me that one beforehand, so I could do the right thing. That's a corner. Wow, that's really difficult.
Because you've done a few big venues and things like that on your own, and support slots.
Yes, yeah.
Is there anything you've kind of, like you're saying, you went and you've thought you could have done better after you thought about it a long time afterwards? You kind of reminisced and went, actually, I could have done better, but at the time it was perfect, like brilliant.
I think I got, for quite a few years, I got really sort of serious, and I wanted sort of every song to have a message, and or a story, or and I think I forgot that part of my job is to entertain folk. I think a prime example actually was I did a few supports for Coast, and there was my wife and my sister came through to the sort of last gig that I opened for them, and they were sitting with some folk, and the guy said, "He's really good, but it's not really Saturday night music." And I get that now.
Yeah.
I try to pick the songs that I thought had a really good message, and no, folk didn't want preached to on a Saturday night. They're just wanting a bit of enjoyment.
Yeah, but the thing is, we've met in person. We've done been on the same stage in person. It's a bit like the gig at that coffee house that you did in Dundee. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, aye.
Yeah, where they weren't really listening anyway.
No, they were just in for a coffee. That's one of the things that it took me ages to get that through my head about pub gigs. You're actually invading their space.
Yeah.
And it's no your right that they have to sit and listen to you. You've gone into their pub.
Yeah.
They're the regulars. You're the newcomer.
Yeah, but the thing is, you had that stage presence from obviously singing as well, and you were able to kind of interact with the crowds, which is always the main part of it, is being able to talk.
Yeah, aye.
Because
And
you didn't want
something that I
a
have.
shy front man.
No, definitely not. I was never. I'm not a sort of showy front man. You know,
No.
you want to see me sort of jumping about posing. But yeah, I like that. Really like that. I didn't for years. I really dreaded having to speak in between songs. But I actually, it was through my day job. I did some. I was part of a project team, and a lot of that, the job of that team was to deliver training.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all, you know, you've got to be able to talk and sort of get your message across with that. And that was a huge help to me, especially once I went on to do sort of solo gigs and the more sort of singer-songwriter-y type gigs. It was a huge help. But as usual, for a while I went totally the wrong way, and every set ran way over because I was yapping so much in between songs.
Yeah, you get to the point where, okay, you do a 45-minute set and you go, okay, I've got 8 songs, that's fine, that's perfect, that'll work.
Yeah.
Not thinking that you've got the bits in between.
Aye, yeah.
And you're probably like myself, you've got your 8 tracks, 8 sets set up, and you're like, I am playing those 8 sets. That is what I'm playing.
Yeah, aye.
I've practiced these, I'm playing them.
I did one a gig. It was a sort of two band thing at the McGregor's barn in the Trossachs, and I can't remember the name of the band, but it was Craig Baxter on sort of Bowden and
Nos.
No, it was way before. It was before. They were still at the conservatoire at that time.
Right. Okay.
I'm trying to think here. I think it was Ross Hammond was the guitarist, and I'm trying to remember the girl's name, the piper. She's for Kerry.
Oh, no.
No, it's gone. It doesn't matter. But that was one.
That's Ayla Sutherland.
Yes, that's her.
Yeah.
And my set ran all over so much that night. I was when I actually clocked, and it was sort of it was basically in quarters. So I did a bit, then they did a bit, I did a second bit, and then they did it. And it was about time to go home by the time I'd finished my second bit, and they still had their set to play. When I looked at the time, because so afterwards and thought, oh shit, that's terrible. That is so bad.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's the point. You get chatting away, and then somebody heckles you, and you pick up on it, and you start chatting, and it just kind of spirals.
Yeah,
and there's nobody there with
try and get it back round to where you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nobody there with a crook to kind of
pull
you back. But what we're going to do, we'll have another video from you.
Okay.
We've got Murderous Cries.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about this one.
That one is off an album that I put out in 2017 called Looking at the Tracks. So that was just after I changed to playing under the name Knaber Junction rather than Gary Anderson, as we spoke about earlier. And I decided I'd done recordings before, and it had always been I just sort of played everything on them. And I decided with this one that I wanted to pull in folk that I'd played with or met over the years and just do it as a more sort of collaborative album thing. Yeah. So I think it ended up there was about 16 or 17 folk played on the album. And this was one of the songs that ended up with. It's a song about basically the lottery of where you happen to be born in the world.
Yeah.
I used to sort of walk my dog around the grounds of an old hospital just just beside where we live, and sort of walk round there and listen to the crows sort of last thing at night, just sort of shouting good night to each other, and then you'd come out and you'd kind of look down over Montrose where I stay, and then sort of go back into the house, and then you turn on the news, and there was all these horrible, pictures coming out of Surrey and places like that, and that basically is where this song came from.
And this album is available to buy.
Yeah, on the Bandcamp page.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we'll discuss that more. But here we have Murderous Cries.
Cheers.
I hear murderous cries coming out of the skies as these slugs lie cold on the ground. But this is no battlefield, this is no tough war, just nature laying her head down. I walk round the field on a warm summer's night, the evening breeze on my face. The grass waves and waves and tide on the shore, a beautiful magical place. I hear murderous cries coming out of the skies, see slugs lie cold on the ground. But this is no battlefield, this is no tough war, just nature laying her head down. Coming out of the trees at the top of the hill, I stand and look down o'er the ground, and I think to myself how lucky I am with this beauty and peace all around. I hear murderous cries coming out of the skies as these slugs lie cold on the ground. But this is no battlefield, this is no tough war, just nature laying her head down. Is it destiny? Is it luck? Born the wrong place, the wrong time. And I think of the innocents caught in the fire in the midst of political fire. Coming down, his bullets and shells, their wind of the silent cloud. Women and children with nowhere to run as the bodies pile up all around. I hear murderous cries coming out of the skies, see slugs lie cold on the ground. But this is no battlefield, this is not tough war, just nature laying her head down. Oh, but theirs is a battlefield, theirs is a tough war, I beg you, lay your arms down.
Thank you.
So what year would that have been when you wrote that?
It was probably written maybe 2015, maybe 2006. No, the album, no, probably maybe 2014 or 2015, because the album took about a year and a half to actually put together and get out. So probably.
Because that would have been your first album under Kinnaber Junction, but you did one before called Hair of the Dog.
Hair of the Dog, but it was just done as Gary Anderson, yeah.
And that was one that you played out everything yourself, didn't you?
Yes, aye.
Yeah.
Yes, it was 2012 it came out.
Yeah, which is also available via Bandcamp. There we go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from the kind of putting that the first album out as yourself, you started picking up support slots
Yeah. Mhm.
and kind of building a name for yourself. Do you want to talk about some of the kind of the gigs and the bands you've supported, the bigger names, let's say, over the
Yeah.
years?
Some of the some of the first big support slots that I got was actually when I was playing with Colin Klein. It was Colin Klein and the Cardins, the band were called. And we supported Big Country. We supported Donny Monroe and Montrose. And then there was a guy who was the promoter on those gigs. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He started giving me. He knew I was doing sort of solo stuff as well, so he started pushing some support slots. I supported Dougie MacLean through him. It was that was actually I did that with my sister.
Okay.
Yeah, as we called ourselves Kith and Kin. But basically, Kith and Kin came about because we got offered that gig, which was quite bizarre. And then it was actually through him that it was him that put me in touch with Ian Bain about the Coast supports. And then totally left field, the Blockheads, Ian Jury's band.
Yeah.
He was bringing them up to Montrose, and he says, "Do you want to do a support slot for them?" And I'm thinking, "Wow, I never sort of wouldn't have saw that one coming." And then I got from there. I just sort of kind of picked up some of the other bigger ones. Though I supported the Old Blind Dogs. Supported opened for Blue Rose Code quite a few times now. Scary Vor up at the Lemon Tree, and a couple of gigs that they did in Montrose as well.
But you've also been lucky enough to play at Celtic Connections as well.
Yeah, I did the Danny Kyle stage, came away highly commended from that. But also one of the very first supports I did as a solo artist was for Boo Hewardine. And it was in a pub in Montrose, just through in their sort of lounge area, and the Finlay Napier came up to that gig because he just sort of started working with Boo, and he was up in the area, so he came along. So I got introduced to Finlay that night. So then he when he was curating the late night sessions down at Celtic Connections, he got me down for a couple of years to do sets at that as well. So it was really enjoyed that.
Now that you mention it, you could also be mistaken for the third Napier brother, couldn't you? Oh, dear me, yeah. So you have kind of played the big kind of festivals. You've done, like you said, you've done Belladrum, you've done Perthshire Amber, you've done the Big Burn Supper. Is there anything that you've not done that you want to do, if any kind of promoters are out there listening, that you'd quite fancy?
I've never sort of played much in Edinburgh and Glasgow.
Okay.
I find it really difficult to sort of get in about some of the venues down there. Although I suppose I'm not particularly pushing myself as a live artist. I kind of, when we came out of the lockdowns, I've no sort of had the best mental health over the years, and I realised that a lot of that was down to the constantly having to chase gigs.
Yeah.
Or feeling the need to chase gigs all the time. So I've never been a full-time musician. I've always had a day job. So coming out of the lockdowns, I decided actually just to take a step back from it a bit. So yeah, as far as, and just kind of almost just do things as they came to me,
Yes.
rather than going chasing them.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best way forward as well, because at the end of the day, your stuff is out there. Your performances online, they're out there, so folk can see what you can do. They can hear what you can do.
Yeah.
And it is at that point that, well, if they want you, they know where you are.
Yeah. Aye.
I know it sounds a bit big-headed, but it's right, because if you're chasing them, then you're chasing a slot, one of, let's say, 6 slots for the same kind of gig
that maybe doesn't even exist.
Well, exactly. Whereas this way, it's a bit easier because on yourself.
Yeah.
I think like you're saying, because you've obviously you've got a full-time day job, and it's a secondary role you're looking at.
Yeah.
You're not as, I'll use the term desperate. You're not actually as desperate for the work. Whereas full-time musicians try to pay the bills and all that, it does make it a bit harder for them. And like you said, it's a kind of a mental health as well as a priority, as we've seen now with the whole kind of the 2 years of COVID and the lack of the arts kind of happening. But you brought in nicely there during COVID, you kind of obviously stopped kind of pushing for gigs, and you started work on other projects. And this project's actually kind of coming to fruition now, and that is your latest album, let's call it.
Yeah, I suppose it will end up as an album. I'd continued writing and sort of recording stuff during lockdown. But because I didn't have a sort of end goal, I had loads of stuff sort of some of it wasn't even half finished. I think the important thing was none of it was finished. I had all these bits,
ideas,
half songs. Some were just still ideas for songs. Some were pretty much almost there, but nothing that I could say was actually finished. So I thought, right, this was it was just back sort of June time. I thought, right, I'm going to set myself a goal to get some of these things finished, that I'm going to release a song again, just on the Bandcamp page, just for now anyway, on the 1st of each month, for at least the rest of 2022. And so I get, as I say, just to sort of push me to finish things.
Yeah.
And it's the first one in June. I put out Brave Tigers, and it's gone down. It went down really well. Got a lot of sort of radio play and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's. I'm just working on that just now. Obviously, I have another one coming out on the 1st of September, which I've just pushed out to the radio stations. I was a bit later this month, getting my act together.
But you have been played on things like Celtic Music Radio in the past as well, and they've been a great kind of promoter of your work. So it's really good.
I did my first interview on them when Mary Kay Burke was on the station. And again, it was actually my wife got in touch with her and just sort of told her a bit about my music and stuff, and she said, I'd love to sort of get them down to the studio and have do an interview and play a few songs live in the studio. So that was my first first time on the radio. So it's really good, and she's consistently been a great supporter of mine. And Ross McFadden really took to the Brave Tigers song big time. He was playing it on a lot of his shows. So
I've dealt with Ross before in the past, and previous guys. You're right. He's got that kind of positive attitude, and if he likes it, then he knows that his audience will like it, and that's one of the good things about.
And it's
Just something
great.
fixed.
It's one of the wonderful things about him for me is that he does such a great mix of, you know, songs, you know, putting I see his playlist and my songs in between a Bruce Springsteen song and a Bob Dylan song, and you know, he really mixes up the you know, the big artists with the more unknown folk like myself. So
Yeah.
it's really good.
But that's how a lot of, like, what I just call unknown artists kind of appear, because
Yeah,
a radio station or a presenter will go, actually, I like this stuff. It fits in with what I'm putting out there,
aye,
and they put it out.
yeah,
And they just kind of, I say they wait for the backlash, but they wait for the response from the audience, if it's positive, negative, neutral,
yeah,
and then they kind of take it from there. But you do find that once you're on a station or on a presenter's role, you kind of you
yeah,
can get it. They'll always kind of support you, which
aye,
is what traditional and kind of trad music is about as well. And I know that a lot of stuff isn't classed as traditional trad, more like the singer songwriter, but it has that
yeah,
aspect of
aye,
folk songs.
yeah. Yeah,
The kind of story.
I've always loved sort of story songs.
Yeah, I'm the same.
It's one of the things, you know, the sort of classic question that every singer songwriter, what comes first, the sort of music or the lyrics? It
Yeah.
really, for me, it has to be the idea, what I'm going to write about. I find it almost impossible to sit down with a blank bit of paper and no idea, you know, a sort of blank paper and a blank mind, and sit and just write something. I think that never works for me. I really need to know what I'm going to write about.
Well, that's it.
It sometimes goes off in a different direction, but it you know, I need that sort of starting point.
Yeah. I think it can be even a story you get told in the pub or at work, and somebody's saying it triggers a kind of a memory for yourself that you're like,
Yeah,
I've been in a similar situation, but mine went a different way, and it kind of can take it from there. Which same again, that is how kind of the oral tradition kind of worked.
yeah.
And it is just kind of about passing it down. So we're going. Sorry, yeah.
A prime example of that, I did a sort of songwriting retreat thing with Karine Polwart and Finlay Napier up at Moniac Moor a few years ago, and one of the exercises was sort of photographs.
Yeah.
And just taking someone for a photograph, and you get about a dozen different songs about the same photograph, just folk picking up a different aspect of it. And I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everyone has their own kind of way of deciphering what they see.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could, like I said, put the same photograph in front of 5 different composers or singer-songwriters, and you'd probably get a different aspect based on their own experiences.
Yeah.
And that's it. So for example, a picture of a boat, somebody who's from the islands will speak about one thing, somebody that's from the East Coast will speak about something else, and it's brilliant, because it doesn't need to be about that actual photo, it's what it triggers elsewhere.
Yeah.
We are going to have another video for you, and this is from your latest kind of project. This is the title track, Brave Tigers. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Brave Tigers and how it came about?
Brave Tigers was, again, like this kind of follows on for just what we've been speaking about. One of my favourite story songs is James Keelahan's Cold Missouri Waters, and which is about sort of survivor guilt. And I wanted to write a song about sort of survivor guilt, that sort of idea. And it, again, just in a sort of flash, I'm not sure what brought it on, but I thought, right, I could set it against a big event like Cold Missouri Waters is, and I decided to set it against the Piper Alpha disaster, and it's unusually for me. It's apart from the fact that it's set against that incident, it's completely from my imagination. You know, it's not about somebody in particular.
It's a what if sort of scenario, isn't it?
Yeah. And it just sort of takes them through for the sort of the lead up, it happening, and afterwards. And,
yeah, it's a very, very poignant in the northeast is the kind of the Piper Alpha. You won't know this, but my dad's cousin was actually on Piper Alpha,
right? Okay.
And survived.
Wow.
So I can see where you're coming from this. So here we have Brave Tigers.
Cheers.
Clear blue sky, Chopper's Eve. This time tomorrow I'll be on my second drum, home and dry, safe and sound, with a cuddle from the kids at the station. 2 weeks offshore and home for 2. It's like living with 2 families. The work is hard, conditions tough, but such a strong camaraderie. Glass in hand, breaking news, still in disbelief at the pictures coming in, rips my heart into what I see. Tears stream down my face, what's in front of me. Road to change a month ago, or I would be there now. I should feel relief, but all I see are the faces of my brothers going down. Husbands, fathers, brothers, all countless families left with broken dreams. Countless families
Cool.
Brilliant. And for those that did like the song, they can hear the album version, let's call it,
Yep.
on the cavejunction.bandcamp.com. And you mentioned to me earlier that is a pay-as-you-feel recording.
Yeah. So you can actually download it for free if you want. And I'm quite happy to, you know, but if you want to pay someone for it, that's all.
Yeah. And if they download today, for example, then when the other tracks are uploaded, then they'll be sent them straight away.
Yeah.
As part of it, which is a brilliant idea. And I think that those that are not putting a price on their product and they just want to share it with the world, that's a good thing as well, because it means that folk are once they get tired of listening to the same song, they then have another one coming up. So rather than kind of listening to an album and getting tired of the album, it's kind of do it that way, which is a brilliant idea. But you've been working on that. So how many? What's the plan? Is it 6 tracks? Your plan is?
Well, that would be that would take me up to the end of the year. I was thinking I might, depending on how things go, I might keep it going so it's maybe 9-10 tracks, and then sort of compile it all together and put it out as an album on the other sort of streaming sites and stuff as well. Because I'll be perfectly honest, even though it is a sort of pay what you want or download it free, you get very few downloads.
Yeah,
you know, it's just not the way folk are doing things now. They're
no.
just everybody's got a Spotify account, and that's if you want to be heard, that's kind of where you need to have your music, which it galls me to say it, but that's the way things are.
Well, that's it. And for those of you that do want to use Bandcamp, and pay towards it, the next Bandcamp Friday is actually this coming Friday, Friday the 2nd of September, which basically means that all the Bandcamp fees are waived, and the artists receive 100%. Well, minus the PayPal or whatever it is, they pay 100% of the money. And we're not just saying this for Gary, but for all our kind of previous guests, anyone you've enjoyed, go to Bandcamp, search for them, and you'll find some fantastic music. Some of the stuff you'll find is completely off the wall compared to what you used to. But yeah, it's one of these things. With your songwriter kind of hat on, who would you say is your inspiration in songwriting, in styles or kind of construction, or just folk you really like to listen to and kind of take it from them?
From a sort of style type of thing, I think I mentioned James Keelaghan. I really like that, and there's I like the way he does things because there's no mega fancy guitar work or anything. He just lets the songs speak for themselves. You know, I've nothing against really fancy guitar playing. It's just I can't do it. So, Ross Wilson of Blue Rose Code, I think his writing is it's unbelievably heartfelt. It's just he absolutely pours his soul into every song he writes, and I could listen to him constantly. I've try to think who else. I think big fan of Finlay Napier. Really, that's why I ended up going on those the songwriting retreat, was because I was such a fan of his stuff, and Karine Polwart as well. It's, you know, it's just constantly evolving. It's just you just never know what you're going to get for Karine.
No, that's it.
Really.
And it's both artists are kind of staples in folk sessions as well.
Yeah.
Throughout Scotland, throughout probably the kind of the trad world. But I don't know if anyone noticed your T-shirt during the videos. It's lyrics from the late great Michael Mara.
Yeah. Aye.
Who I was lucky enough to work with once, and the recordings went missing, which was really annoying. But do you find that like Michael's stuff kind of puts a kind of is someone you kind of get drawn to as well, and the style, the story style of writing?
Absolutely. But his writing is just on another level completely.
Yeah, I know what I mean. Yeah,
you know, it's just something that I could never say, that I've written anything like that could be compared to anything, you know, because his writing was just unbelievably good on all levels.
Yeah.
And,
I think I'd say about the use of language as well.
Yeah.
And just kind of, again, was a bass player originally, which is always funny.
Okay, so I've got one thing in common.
Yeah, you don't play piano, do you, Gary?
No.
Because I remember I went to a gig with my dad, and it was the old Westport bar, and he was being supported by the Hazy Janes, who's obviously his daughter and son band, and his piano keyboard sitting there on an ironing board.
Yeah. Yeah, he played up at the folk club quite a few times, and it was always on the ironing board. It's brilliant.
It's 8 years of grace. It's just you get what you see. Fantastic. Yeah. Speaking of folk clubs, you are involved in the Montrose Folk Club.
Yes. Yep.
Which, how long have you been involved with it?
I'm not sure. It's probably longer than I think now. You know, I was it probably maybe about 13, 14 years now.
Yeah.
That I don't know, maybe that's more since I started going to it, and I got I was doing sort of floor spots and things like that, and then I started sort of helping out with the sound, because it used to be that the PA was kind of set up by the hotel, and the artists just had to muck in and sort of basically do their own sound, and it would never felt that was particularly, you know, an artist. Some of the artists that we were getting shouldn't have to do that for themselves.
No,
so,
I understand.
So I started doing the sound. Just about every artist that comes, I said, by the way, I'm more used to being at your side of the mic, so bear with me.
But sometimes that's the best thing, is somebody that understands what they're going to want.
Yeah.
Or what? Yeah. And as Robert is saying, you've moved venue after COVID as well.
Yeah.
To the Playhouse Cinema and Arts Complex.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that room as well, you know more than the artist does, because you've been there and you've worked it as well.
Yeah.
And you know that, okay, they might want a bit of reverb, they might want a bit of this, but at least you know what might be what's an offer and what can kind of work with. So the good thing about the Montrose Folk Club over the years is it's always had, like you said, some big names.
Aye, well, Michael played there. I think it was 5 or 6 times over the years. With Adult Blind Dogs there, Chris Drever, just you know, anybody, and also bring in there's usually sort of during each sort of season of gigs, which are sort of 6-month seasons. There's usually at least sort of 2 or 3 of them from Canada or the States as well. So it's great to get to meet all these folk as well.
Well, as you said, you've previously done kind of opening slots for some of the big names, which is the Blue Rose Code, and that's how you got to kind of know the guys. But there's this, since you've moved to the new venue, you've kind of changed the format of the folk club.
Yeah, it's more almost like just like a gig now, rather than a folk club, as folk would know a folk club. We came back after the sort of COVID lockdowns and things, and we thought we're going to have to do things different, and also with the sort of move to the new venue, I thought it seemed an ideal time, and we were kind of thinking, well, the sort of floor spots and things aren't a good idea, because folk are then sort of sharing mics and stuff like that. So we thought, right, we'll just have the sort of 2 45-minute sets from the main artist, and that'll be the, we've still got a raffle in the middle. It's
I was going to say that's kind of the staple of a folk club gig, is there if there's a raffle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of these things that kind of funds it as well, because sometimes you won't get a full house. You'll have, and the raffle kind of makes up for the possible losses.
Well, that's yeah. Well, luckily, on the whole, since we moved to the new venue, we've had really good turnouts. But you're absolutely right. There has been nights in the past where if we hadn't been doing a raffle as well, we would have taken a fairly hefty hit. On the night.
I think that's just one of these things with folk clubs, is that the clientele previously was of the older generation.
Yeah, well, that was why we wanted to be so careful coming back after COVID, because we felt, we've got to protect these folk as well, and so it's and it is still for in the main a sort of an older crowd.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Yeah, like next week. No, it's next week, the 3rd.
This Tuesday. Yeah.
This Tuesday, you've got Ross
Yeah.
Cooper and Tom Oakes.
Yeah.
And it's which they'll entertain any crowd, regardless what your age group is.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good things about the artists that are coming through. They're savvy enough on social media as well to promote their own kind of stuff, which then in turn brings them to your venue and such like that. And that's what you want. You've got the I'm going to say diehard, but the diehard fan that are kind of support the folk club regularly, and they'll if it doesn't really matter what's on, they'll probably still be there and kind of take it as it comes. And then you've got the kind of the newer crowd coming in, depending on the artist, because they look at it, well, if I don't like it, I'm not going to go. Whereas previously, you went anyway, and you're exposed to new music, and that's one of these things yourself as well that probably opened your eyes and your songwriting is being exposed to other genres and
definitely
performing other genres. I think you probably find that if you really kind of looked back on it, your style, the pub gigs, the country gigs, and all that sort of stuff, there's elements in what you do now.
Definitely.
Kind of report back to it.
That's why that was how I kind of came up with the name Kinnaber Junction. It's actually a railway junction that no longer exists. That's about 100 yards from where I'm sitting now.
Yeah.
But it just seemed to fit in with the fact that I was using all these different players on the album, and it was almost like all those genres and all those musicians just coming together and a junction.
Yes.
And then it carries on for there, and we see where it goes.
And that's one of these things with your project. I think if you look back at it now, the kind of the incident of January 1st, 2017, where a darts player stole your name. That's probably been a kind of blessing in disguise for you, because it has allowed you to go out on your own, or go out with a band behind you, or a couple of guys to perform your music.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went out as Gary Anderson, they're expecting one man and his guitar, whereas with Canberra Junction, it sounds like a band.
Yes,
and you get there's various forms.
Yeah.
If the budget's right, then you'll bring more members.
Aye, yeah. It was really good. As we in that time after the album came out, I did solo gigs.
Mm-hmm.
We did a duo gig. We did quite a few trio gigs. We did 4-piece gigs, and mainly it was a 5-piece band that Canberra Junction went out as. There was a couple of the sort of just after the album came out, we went hell for leather. We had all the backing singers so they ended up about 9-10-piece bands. But you couldn't afford to do that every weekend.
No. Right, everyone gets a $5. But that's it. I think the way things are going now, there's the studio band, and then there's the band that goes out on tour or goes out to do gigs. And you get more time to work on studio stuff. Was it a local studio used for the album?
Well, actually, a lot of it was recorded in either my house or the engineer's house. Okay. A lot of the vocals and stuff. We tried to do the sort of rhythm tracks with everybody together. Yeah. And again, we just used a couple of venues. It was all pretty much, how was it? He described it as guerrilla recording. You would just sort of go in somewhere, set up and do. So there wasn't really any studios as such used for it, to hopefully get a sort of more organic sound.
Yeah, yeah. We've got your second track from your current project, the Hydro Boys. What's that about?
I was up playing in Inverness, and I was in the second-hand bookshop. It used to be a church, and I can't remember the name of it. And I picked up a book called The Hydro Boys, and it was about the guys that put together the sort of hydroelectric dams and tunnels and all that good stuff, and all the infrastructure to bring sort of hydropower to Scotland. So it's basically, the song is based on the book, really. Okay.
Another story song, which is obviously what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Perfect. So here's the Hydro Boys.
Okay.
The ice age brought this country to the beauty we behold. Mountains hide from frozen glens, land worth more than gold. But on this land from skies above, the rain comes pouring down. To tap into that resource, a plan had to be found. From all around, an army came to slow the rivers down and focus all that energy to turn the turbines round. Working long and playing hard, now these born and bred, building dams and tunneling, a dangerous life they led. They harness nature's energy and schemes across the land. From Raymond's Rock to Crooken, their monuments now stand. Powered by Highland water, so everyone enjoys the power they got flowing. They were the Hydro Boys. Water cycles where the patterns going round and round. Water cycles relied upon, we surely would fail. But one thing we can guarantee, it's Cyrus gonna reign. They harness nature's energy and schemes across the land. From Ravensrock to Crookham, their monuments now stand. Powered by Highland water, so everyone enjoys the power they got flowing. They were the Hydro Boys. They harness nature's energy, schemes across the land. From Ravensrock to Crookham, their monuments now stand. Powered by Highland water, so everyone enjoys the power they got flowing. They were the Hydro Boys. Oh, they got the power flowing. They were the Hydro Boys. Oh, they got the power flowing. They were the Hydro Boys.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Oh, I think everyone here is agreeing with me that it's fantastic the stuff you're doing.
Cheers.
I'm looking for an exclusive, Gary. Tell us what the September track is about.
It kind of follows on from that one. Obviously, the last verse of that one is a bit about the sort of climate change and stuff like that. So the September one is just continues that theme. Actually, it's called "Don't Pick a Fight with Nature."
Yeah,
it was inspired by there's an area just sort of down the river from where I stay called Canaber Woods, and it was absolutely decimated during the storms last year.
Yeah.
There's hardly any woods left. It's unbelievable the damage that was done, and it just kind of just again makes me think, nature will come out on top. It doesn't matter what we do. If we take it on, we're going to be the losers.
Yeah.
So that's what September is. That's the next one in line.
Brilliant. And apart from that, have you got much planned going forward to the end of the year and afterwards?
The only other thing I've got sort of live wise is I've been sort of depping with a Cayley band, just helping them out if anybody's not available. Well, the guitarist's not available. I wouldn't be much use helping depping for the fiddle player. So.
Well, I don't know. If you play mandolin, you can play anything.
No. So so I've got another couple of gigs lined up with them. I think there's one in October, and it's then on Hogmanay as well. Playing Hogmanay with them. So
you might end up doing a song as well then.
Eh?
You might end up doing a song as well.
Aye, well, the last. Well, I've done 2 gigs with them. The first one I did a song just sort of halfway through the night, sort of thing, to give everybody a break. And then the last time we didn't need to. They were up for dancing, so it was just
good.
Keep the sets going, sort of thing. Yeah, so that's it. And like I say, I'm just kind of taking it pretty easy, just wait to see what comes along. As you mentioned, I did a concert on Friday night, which was in aid of sort of supporting getting supplies over to Ukraine, and it was a really sold out night in Inverkeeler Village Hall, and everybody had a fantastic night. So I'm just, as I say, just taking things as they come.
Sometimes that's the best way, Gary. Sometimes that's the way. The folk club going forward, obviously, all the for those that are in the area, I think it's up until the end of the year. You've got up.
Yeah, I think so. I think all the dates. I kind of do the Facebook page, but it's not me that does the website. So, but I'm pretty sure.
Check. So Ross Cooper and Tom Oakes, Rachel Sermani, Jesse Terry, My Darling Clementine, Dave Peabody with Regina Mudrick, and Catfish Keith. That's up until November. So
Yep.
you usually take a break at the end of the year, do you?
Yeah, we normally stop but we've actually got Jill Jackson just at the end of November as well.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
one's maybe not up there. We normally take December off because there's audiences can be a hit or a miss in December because folk have got so many things on. They're sort of saving for Christmas, so we tend to take December off. And then we usually start up again towards the end of January, usually trying to sort of poach somebody for the Celtic Connections lineup.
Yeah, while you're here,
exactly.
We can pay your bus fare to Montrose. If you're lucky, we'll get you a taxi.
Aye.
That's one of these things. I think with your relationship with Celtic Connections, having played there, you find that the guests that are the guests that are there that you want, you'll probably get because of how inviting and how warm the response is at the folk club.
Aye, yeah,
and that's it. You don't. It's not as if it's a completely random gig that's on the back of it, just kind of to grab onto somebody. It's a kind of a nucleus that kind of runs, which is really what you want. But no, that's fantastic. And it's good to see that the folk club's coming back as well after everything. Before you go, we are going to have one last track, and as I mentioned before the show, the brother of the original singer is watching today.
Aye,
it's fine. Yeah, I really should have mentioned that before. We're going to have a cover.
Yeah,
which I think you said it on. It's a song you don't think you've ever done live.
I don't think so. I kind of think ever. I've not been playing it that long. I was just kind of. I'd been mucking about with Dadgad tuning on guitar, and I've written a few things in it now. And this song that we're about to do just kind of came. And that works quite well in Dadgad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it came from. But I kind of think that I've done it at a gig. So you've got another exclusive.
Spoiling you. Two of them in one show.
You.
Oh, it's such an honour. Like I said, Gary, it's been fantastic having you on tonight.
Been good fun.
Really. I'm sure Peter's going to have to watch back and take the slagging that he's going to get. But yeah, but it's been great. So I'll let you introduce this track before you go.
Okay. So this is a track by a band I first saw at the Aberdeen Capitol in I reckon it must have been about 1983. Round about then. I actually got it was my sister and her husband were going up to see them anyway, and they said, "You fancy going to see this band?" And I thought, "Oh, okay." And unbelievably, I actually managed to get a ticket on the day, which a year later just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, would not happen. No, you're right.
So this one is Hearts of Olden Glory by Runrig.
Gary, hopefully I'll see you again.
Aye.
All the best.
Yes, you too,
Thank
David.
you. Cheers.
There's thunder clouds round the hometown bay as I walk out in the rain through the sepia showers and the photo flood days. Caught a fleeting glimpse of light, though the water's black as night. The colours of Scotland leave young inside. There must be a place There's a vision coming through the faith that cleans the wounds, hearts of old and glory will be renewed, and the lands where the headlands stand felt the healing through this land, across for a people, like wind through your hands. There must be a place under the sun where hearts of old and glory grow young. There must be a place under the sun where hearts of old and glory grow young.
What can we say about that? It's fantastic having Gary on tonight. And thank you very much for your comments. Apologies if I missed any. It is difficult doing all that on your own. There you go. That's Alan Monroe saying that that's good. You should do it at a gig. There's another one for this, Gary. I'll keep it short. Next week, we have on the great accordion and drummer, Mr. Kyle Innes. So he'll be joining us next week. Hopefully, Peter will join us next week. Hopefully, he's feeling a bit better. But until then, have a great week. All the best.